Today, now going over to the political part of the podcast, you have Vivek on his endorsement requirements going viral. Now, this comes from Vivek's personal Twitter profile, and again, it was last week, but still I think it's pertinent because people put a lot of importance on significance on endorsements and also known as like a seal of approval. And I mean, within 48 hours, it's got 1.7 million views and 34,000 likes, which is quite many to say the least. Yeah, I would say a good average for Vivek's tweets usually between 600,000 and a million views per tweet or per post. So definitely went above more than usual. Now, it is a little bit lengthy. However, I think it's worth reading, so we'll dive in. So without further ado, Vivek says, quote, "I'm honored by the influx of endorsement requests, but let's be honest, most endorsements are meaningless, so here's what we're doing. Any candidate whom I endorse in this cycle will make a hard commitment to the following principles. One, the government will elect and run government." Oh, jeez Louise. Again, I am not a speaking expert by any means. However, I have a theory. I made a lot more speaking errors when I first started the show. Spoke a lot faster. I would stumble over my words, mispronounce things even more, believe it or not. But as we got more subscribers, the speaking it's gotten a little bit better. Just a modicum of improvement, some might say, but an improvement nevertheless. So I have a theory. The more people that subscribe, the better my speaking will get. So, yet another friendly reminder, if you could click that like button and subscribe button, it might just help me improve more and more. And it might prove that theory to be true. So I'd especially appreciate it. So again, I will attempt to read the requirements that Vivek has. Quote, 1. The people we elect to run government should actually run the government. 1A. Favor 75% headcount reduction in federal and state bureaucrats. 1B. If it's state action in disguise, the Constitution still applies. The U.S. government cannot use private companies to do through the back door what government cannot get done through the front door under the law. 1C. Shut down irreparable government agencies. 2. The first and only moral duty of the U.S. leaders is to U.S. citizens. 2A. Homeland defense should be the top priority of all national defense spending. 2B. End foreign aid to any country whose national debt per citizen is less than ours and defund international institutions hostile to U.S. sovereignty. 2C. Require disclosure of dual citizenship for all public officials who expose any conflicts of interest. To expose any conflicts of interest. 3. Public service is about service to the people, not oneself. 3A. End trading of individual stocks by members of Congress and bureaucrats. 3B. 10-year ban on lobbying for politicians and bureaucrats. Ban corporate board memberships for entities they regulated. 3C. 8-year term limits for elected officials and bureaucrats. 4. The absence of national pride is an existential threat to our nation's future. We must fill that void. 4A. Every high school senior should be able to pass the same civics test that every immigrant must pass to become a voting citizen in this country. 4B. Veterans' benefits and military compensation should be tax-free. 4C. Shut down the government Department of Education and put that money back into the parents' pockets to empower educational choice, unquote. And it is fascinating. Someone who has no political experience has more ideas than people who have been working there for decades or their whole lifetime. Which, granted, as we know, I'm not a fan of most politicians, so I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. But again, I think it just goes to show you the power of, well, one, having some experience in the private sector. Because again, I think a lot of these points are exceptionally correct. Again, you look at the U.S. military, they have the lowest memberships in years. Every branch failed their recruitment efforts and their recruitment goals, with the exception of the U.S. Marines, which I would argue partially because they have the least amount of politics in terms of changing them, and they also have some of the best marketing in terms of they have a pride and they have a history that they also advertise. But every other branch is missing their recruiting goals, and less people are patriotic. There are some places where there are more people flying the Ukraine flag in the United States than the United States flag. And you see the public schools, they don't teach patriotism anymore. I think that's a huge contributing factor of why our military is decreasing in headcount. Now, a couple of those others are especially important as well. I mean, reduction in headcount would be great. And again, I understand why the U.S. gives all this money to other countries when we are in debt. It's in a futile, some might say futile attempt to keep the U.S. dollar stable, because if you give someone money, they're going to spend your money. They're not going to use another nation's. So that is a big argument of why we give so much money to businesses, other countries overseas. I mean, the big issue is the U.S. just keeps going to the negative year over year under Democrats and Republicans. They just keep spending money. And again, someday that debt will be called up. And it's this it's almost an unfathomable amount of debt. It's $34 trillion. It's out of control. And we really need to rein in our spending. It is concerning to say the least. And I think that's another good point in terms of, I mean, public service, yeah, it used to be something where you are making a huge sacrifice to serve your country in terms of going to DC and being involved in that type of realm. And now it is actually a way to enrich your portfolio. Now, it does take a vast amount of resources to get there as well. It's just kind of the name of the game in terms of you need a huge amount of resources for advertising, for marketing, to get the word out there, to campaign. It's not a cheap thing in and of itself. But don't get me wrong, even when you take those costs into effect, then you factor in their salary, their healthcare benefits, they're just making a phenomenal ROI, I would argue, on the bigger government level. When it's a small thing like your local mayor, or that you're probably losing money in most cases. So, I don't know, I think it's exceptional and great ideas from Vivek, but perhaps I'm alone in this assessment. Let's go into the comments and find out. One of the first ones has a GIF, and perhaps one of the best ones. It's the Final Cut Michigan said, quote, "I knew it." And it's a good old Scooby-Doo meme or juxtaposition of two pictures where you have Freddy, and he's about to unmask the perpetrator of or the bad guy of the show, and it's Vivek, and he takes the mask off, and it's Vivek, but it's dressed up as George Washington. And the caption is, "Let's see who you really are," and he takes it off. They got 4,000 likes. See here? Sassafras 84 says, quote, "Stop the government from spying on Americans. This sounds like a dream come true. Let's make it a reality," unquote. Gained 1.7 thousand likes. Chris Maidment says, quote, "While I do not agree with Mr. Ramaswamy on everything, putting concrete requirements on endorsements makes a lot of sense. That's how you find candidates that support your agenda," unquote. Gained 2.3 thousand likes. And yes, that is very true, because a lot of times it's almost as cliche as a celebrity putting their seal of approval on some type of energy drink or something like that. I mean, it's not like they're going to labs and they're researching it and they're actually looking at the data of, what's this energy drink going to do for the average person? They're like, do I even consume this? And more often than not, I'd say probably not. Same thing in politicians. They say, oh yeah, I endorse that person. What does that really mean, though? You're just saying you like them? And there's not a lot of concrete things that really make things stick. That's why I think we're always so disappointed by politicians. Many of them never follow through on the things that they promulgate. Red Wave Press says, quote, "Endorsements are fairly useless. I want our candidates to commit to putting America and conservative agenda first. Too many Republicans get elected and vote Democrat. This needs to end. Follow if you agree." Unquote. Gained 457 likes. And yes, that brings home a good point. There are a lot of rhinos, or pejoratively known as Republicans in name only, where they run as a Republican, but then they vote, once they get to DC, they vote Democrat, which, fascinatingly enough, you don't see that from Democrats ever. Seems to only be Republicans who are lying about what side they really align with. You have Bulldog for Vivek says, quote, "Vivek's American First 2.0 vision is on point and starts in November 2024 with President Trump's victory and hopefully Vivek as his VP." Unquote. Gained 415 likes. Do one more here. Eric Wages says, quote, "This is a clear, concise, and logical, and what every American should be thinking of when they vote. Vivek Ramaswamy is a blessing for America First movement. We need more people like him in the government to turn this country around. Follow if you agree," unquote. Getting 323 likes. So it looks like, I'm trying to see, our favorite contrarian, Luke Zaleski, is actually not on this chain, interestingly enough. He usually is one of the more leftist people who reply on these political posts. Let's see. And this might be one of Vivek's most liked posts ever. Because again, I'm trying to see, because, let's see here. Yeah, a lot of people just giving him accolades, saying this is America First. I mean, we need to hold politicians accountable. Says, "Youth might say he went viral, to say the least." And I think it'd be a good idea to actually have some requirements and have some, almost like be interested to see if you can have a contract where if you win someone's endorsements, I mean, I'm not sure how you'd enforce it. If they were to break it or once they get in the office, they don't follow through. I mean, it certainly damaged their reputation, but it'd be fascinating to see if you could somehow legally hold them to the requirements. That'd be an interesting conversation. But I guess we shouldn't be too surprised if Vivek continuing to knock it out of the park with his statements, and it'll be fascinating to see where he ends up in terms of his political career. But I can't but think it is going to be a pretty bright future. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of February, so if you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comments. A great way to give me some additional feedback. Also, sharing the show helps with the magical YouTube algorithm. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.